A 200-year plan for restoring the Mississippi Delta. William Hovey Smith, 2011.
I'm Hovey Smith with Hovey's Outdoor Adventures. A significant event took place here at the Biloxi Convention Center yesterday. Then the Gulf Coast Restoration Task Force held the last of their public hearings, inviting input into how to restore the Gulf Coast after the effects of Katrina and Rita, and most recently, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill disaster. This task force is mandated not only to look at the disaster recovery, but for the long-term recovery of the Gulf Coast in general from hundreds of years of environmental degradation caused by man. It started as early as the 1500s when they started cutting cypress trees off the coastal islands. Well, it got progressively worse and worse and worse. So now we are losing areas the size of Manhattan every year from the Gulf Coast. Not only am I a journalist, I'm a professional geologist. So I presented a paper here for the 200-year restoration of the Gulf Coast. Oh, you know, this is one guy making one statement and trying to influence national policy. So I'll have a radio show, an hour-long show on Hovey's Outdoor Adventures that will run in mid-September 2011. That is reality radio. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. You'll hear the presentation I gave. You'll hear the responses, or lack of them. And you'll see if one guy can really get something done that's significant in the national scene. So we're going to try this experiment. In the meantime, you'll be able to see some still pictures that I took and actually hear the presentation that I gave.
I'm Hovey Smith, and I am, by all indications, a very odd bird in this community. I'm from Georgia. I'm a professional geologist. I'm also a geochemist, in particular a heavy metals geochemist having to do with sediments. I've had professional experience all over North America. I know the Louisiana Delta area. I've hunted and fished there for decades. I'm an outdoor writer. I'm one of these damnably inventive guys. There are folks like us. I have radio shows. I have books. I do plays. I do all sorts of stuff. And in the process, I have come up with a plan for the restoration of the Louisiana Delta. A plan I will never see completed. A plan, if successful, no one in this room will ever see completed, nor their children, nor their children, nor their children. The Louisiana Delta has gone through hundreds of years of degradation. It will take hundreds of years to bring it back. This is a fact that we need to see. We are limited in our brief lifespans. Maybe I've got 20 years left in this life. If I'm lucky, maybe 20. But what we can start here today can start the restoration back. This is a program that's going to require input from everybody. This is not something that's going to come down from Washington as a dictate from high, but it needs the input from the mayors of these small towns. It needs the input from the Vietnamese fishermen. It needs the input from Plaquemine Parish. It needs the input from the state. It needs the input from the federal government. Ultimately, this will have to be enacted by the federal government. This is not the time for any long-term plan to be enacted by the federal government. I think anyone would admit that this economic climate is not for that. What can we do? What do we need to do to get the path started on the right direction? Okay. Some of the problems we have outlined here. There is no bad time to start a good thing. Okay, we know we can't get immediate results, but we can get a good thing started today. The scope of the problem, it's been outlined by many of the speakers here. It's large. Even just speaking of the Louisiana Delta, this is a large critical area to the nation's economy. It's a large critical area for wildlife habitat. People live there, one of the nation's major energy resources, a major transportation corridor, and all of these parts have to work. There's no restoring the Louisiana Delta like it was in 1700 or even in 1950. We don't have that technology. We have to work with what we've got. We have to do the best we can. We have to make a lot of compromises, and every one you make there are going to be winners and losers because you're goring somebody's ox. This is a huge, complex system. If you make a change in any part of it, you're going to affect some other people, some positively and some negatively. And these changes are going to have to be balanced in the process. How in the world do you do this? Well, the way you do it is you have a centralized organization based in Louisiana, mandated by the federal government, something similar to the TVA. Gets its funding from oil resources, from transportation resources, etc., etc., etc. So this way, it is independently funded of Congress. Then, the way it works, you agree beforehand. Okay, you say, we've got this stuff here at such and such a point, and the flow in the Mississippi River, like it was just earlier this year, we're having a world record flood. What do we do about it? Okay, we divert X number of acre feet down in this part here. We use some of that excess sediment, some of that excess water, and we flood this part of the marsh. Actually did that, remember? The Atchafalaya Basin was flooded when they opened the Merganza Spillway. That saved the city of New Orleans and Baton Rouge from being flooded. I was here. I was down there. I could see the river up there. And it was running 23 miles an hour. Whoosh! Okay. So we know we can do some things right. But we have to approach it systematically and long term. This is not a short-term problem. And we humans have got to realize that if you're going to have long-term impact, you have to plan long. You have to plan for organizations that are going to survive the people who started it, and their people, and their people, and that people. And have this out from the outset, that this is not something that anyone living in that organization is ever going to see completed. It's got to be flexible. There are going to be reverses. There are going to be hurricanes. There are going to be oil spills. Things you built are going to be destroyed. This is a very dynamic environment. Woof! We know that. We saw it 6 years ago. My Lord, we saw it 6 years ago. But this is what happens. If you have an organization in place with some pre-planned actions ready to go that has already been approved by all environmental government organizations, okay, you have the chance to have rapid action. That's what we did not have in Katrina. We did not have that capability for rapid direction action by the people on the ground. There were guys down here in Plaquemine Parish who were threatened with prison because they dared to pick up a little oil that was in their area. They knew how to get it. They got it anyway. Okay. We have a lot of interest here. We have the government, we have the NGOs, of which many of you here, and many of you would have input in this. We have commercial energy interests, we have energy interests, and we have the interest of sportsmen. I'm one of them guys, but fellas, write books. Yes, sir. Backyard deer hunting, converting deer to dinner for pennies a pound. You can't get much more basic than that. I shoot the deer in my backyard, I drag them home, I kill them and eat them and cook them. And I tell other people how to do that. Crossbow hunting, same sort of program. As I say, I'm one of these damnably versatile guys. I'm an idea guy. I generate things. So many I can never hope to do them all. All right, so what next then? So we have a new Louisiana-based federally mandated organization. Its central mission is Delta restoration. It's not like the Corps of Engineers is saddled with now. They have, well, their Delta restoration things is sort of an aftermark, you know. That's not their main deal. All right. We need a stable management in this organization. Both the Corps of Engineers and the Coast Guard, they change up their people every couple of years. By the time you get one trained up, he's gone. And you have to work out with a whole new crew to train them up to speed, and then they're gone. So you need someone in some organization consistent all the way through the process. Remember, we're talking about decades of work, centuries of work. Wow, this has got to get done. Independent resources. It needs to have its own source of funding, so it does not get caught in the economic short hairs when we get in one of these economic depressions like we're in right now. Call it recession if you like. Down where I come from, guys, we're in a depression. All right. We need direct input from the stakeholders. Not just consulted, not just get out of the way and let we people know what we're doing, get to work. We saw how that did. Not very well, by the way. We need rapid response. You've got people threatened with their livelihood and even their lives. And this is not a time to do a mandated study that's going to be ready in 2 years when people are dying. Okay. Continuous management program. It's going to last for centuries. The only thing that we have like this that ever got started that I can think of offhand is the foundation of the national government. Now that we did. Those guys knew when they wrote the Constitution of the United States that they were starting something that they would never live, or hope never to live to see the end of, that it would survive them. We need to have exactly the same approach. We need to build a survivable organization. All right. The worst part, be able to make the tough decisions that will directly impact people's lives. There's no way you can manage a complex system like this without adversely impacting people. Somebody is going to get impacted one way or another somehow. Hopefully, we'll be able to say to an oysterman, say, all right, we're going to introduce fresh water here in 5 years. This part is going to be gone for your oysters in 5 years. It's going to be too fresh. But in the meantime, we're going to give you a compensated area down here so you can move, and 5 years warning so you can actually move your operations and continue your business. So this is how that sort of thing can work. With planning, people can do a lot of things. And better planning than get sort of caught by the short hairs, although that's going to happen in this complex system anyway. All right. What now? How do we do it? We know there's not a chance in blazes that this is going to get in Congress, even if this committee were recommended. It's just not going to happen. What can happen is you form a non-governmental organization with this directive. Maybe there's one out there already that has this sort of mission nebulously in their charter, but haven't quite focused it here yet. That organization may already exist. I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. If not, need to do that. All right. Where do I come into this mess? I'm one guy. I'm living on Social Security, folks. I have no funding, no financing, no way to go anywhere except on my own hook. Now, I can publicize this thing, but I got to have some support and I got to have some money from somewhere to do it. Okay, we're asking. If you feel that this is a worthwhile project, that this is something that at least ought to be voiced, at least ought to be heard, okay, need some help, guys. Need some lawyers. Need to found a nonprofit if we have to. If there's an organization not out there willing to step into these shoes, we need to get that started. A 1 hour-long radio show will be broadcast about this event. How do I know? I'm doing it. I'm recording it this very instant. This will be on national and international radio via the internet. No reason to people say that, well, we haven't heard about it. It's going to be out there for anyone who cares to look. They can Google it up and they can find it. But I'm convinced that this long-term is exactly what's going to be necessary to make any real difference in the restoration of the Louisiana Delta. Well, thank you. And remember, There never is a bad time to start a good thing. So let's get one started.
For thinking so long and hard about this, I wanted to give you a Gulf Ecosystem Restoration pin, the one I've been wearing. So I appreciate your thought, and I have some questions for you later.
Well, thank you very much, and it is appreciated.
Thanks for suffering through this rather slapdash production. It's obvious that I need some help with this. There's going to be none from the federal, state, or local sources in this economic climate. Grants would be welcome, some legal assistance, some media production assistance. Now, if you can't do any of that, well, buy my books. Go to www.hoviesmith.com, or you can get them from Amazon.com or any other sources. Help save the Delta.